Thanks for joining us for another episode of Talking Sense. I am here with Patrice Greene, founder and CEO of Inverta, and this episode is going to be about navigating the journey from leads to account-based, which is an extremely hot topic, and Patrice and her firm are absolute experts, so I'm really excited to dig in and learn a bit more about what you're seeing. So I guess I want to start with you, because I know when we met, I found it really interesting. You had this amazing career and doing all this great stuff, and then you decided to start over.
I know, people think that's crazy.
It is a little crazy.
It is, yeah.
So why?
You know, I guess to answer that question, it's a little bit personal and a little bit professional, right? So I think on the personal side, I felt like I had accomplished everything I could accomplish in growing a marketing automation firm, right? A firm that was supporting the marketing automation community. I was ready for a different kind of challenge. I was ready to stop and see what I could do as an entrepreneur. But the other piece was a very, very clear gap that I had started to see in the market, and I just could not ignore. You know, when you work with firms helping them implement marketing automation, it's very sort of through the lens of that particular technology. And then you sort of creep up and you help with nurture strategy. And we would talk to CMOs and heads of marketing back then, and I would constantly hear that, hey, I just got done an engagement with Serious Decisions. Now what? I don't know what to tell my team to do, right? Your firm is great, but I need more strategists to help me. And it just sort of became clear that there's a whole bunch of consulting firms that sort of operate at the 50,000 foot view. There's a whole bunch of implementation firms, but there wasn't a lot sort of sitting in the middle to go out and help marketers, to have more of that sort of, let's roll up our sleeves, let's consult, but let's do it, in a very actionable way that's mapped to things that are feasible within the technologies. So.
And I mean, it seems to be going amazing.
It's going great. It's going great. You know, it's one of those things where you kind of cross your fingers and you hope that that gap that you see in the market actually exists. And you hope that your message and the types of services that you can provide fit a need. And so when you go out and you do that and you have clients that stick with you for years on end, it's sort of, okay, I guess we were onto something.
I think the gap in the market, but also probably compounded by the big shift to ABM. And ABM is everything's an ABM. So it's really confusing for people to know, what does that really mean?
Yep.
And I kind of find it a little hilarious. It's really just good marketing.
My business partner, Kathy, has a blog post that's like ABM or JGM, just good marketing. Like, what's the difference?
Yeah.
And when we started Inverta, Kathy, my business partner, had come from a background of having really spent a lot of years consulting through the ITSMA ecosystem and helping people with more one-to-one, right, account-based marketing. So she had sort of a ton of experience on that side, and now combine that, right, with me sitting on the marketing automation side and having clients go, I don't want lead scoring anymore, I want account scoring, right? And starting to ask for account views, which back, 5 years ago, you couldn't get inside marketing automation. And so when we started the firm, we kind of said, I think organizations are gonna want to understand how to make this, some people say it's a pivot, but really you need to balance the two and do it in a more scaled way than the traditional one-to-one. And so that was really, we do so much more than account-based, but we did definitely sort of hit on I think a pulse in the market on how you scale, right? What does more, one to few and programmatic ABM look like in a world where now there's data and technology to support it?
So let's pull on that thread, because I believe, and based on my own personal experience, it is impossible to scale ABM without AI, big data, and just really good insights that are consumable and at your fingertips. So. Correct. What do you see, what do people need?
Yeah, I think it's a few things. I think for sure on the AI, the analytics, anything that's going to allow us to understand who we should be targeting and to get more data-driven in that particular approach. I think it's also the listening to understand from a messaging perspective. I think too often we see organizations attempt account-based programs, but just use their traditional demand gen messaging, which isn't going to be successful. So really kind of understanding how to leverage those things to put the right message in market. And then there's the orchestration layer, right? Now, so once we kind of figure out who to target, what to say to them, to scale it from an orchestration perspective. I'm also a believer that, at some point the market has to go, okay, we cannot probably, we can't expect that ABM can be 100% automated and systemic, right? In order to do it well, I think we can get it to a certain point, but there's obviously the human interaction point, right, to be able to be effective with it.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Like I was on a podcast talking about the role of the BDRs, and there was a little bit of a doomsday, like, is this role going to be diminishing? And I'm like, I never see that, because so much, a company doesn't buy, a person ends up buying eventually, and behind great software and technology is always people. So we still have to be making those kind of human connections.
And I think also somebody to be looking at the data and the analytics and looking at that piece of it to consistently kind of evaluate who are we targeting the right people. So I think that side too. But I'm with you. I think when you get to a one-to-few and a programmatic, I mean, that's really where, if you do not have the right technology and data in place, you're going to be ineffective at scaling it.
So coming up with the right message was something you just asked, you just commented on. And I've been thinking a lot about this, especially because so much of research is done anonymously. And what our clients are doing and what we're doing, which is kind of interesting, is I think about a new form of listening, which is digital listening with intent data.
Yep.
And so maybe like talk about that and how clients...
Yeah, I would say probably 90% of our clients, right, will have some level of intent listening, right? And if they don't, then we're saying, hey, we need to bring this in.
Sure.
And again, I think that really plays a role in kind of figuring out who we should target. Sometimes very common scenarios are, we already have a target account list, sales has given us a target account list. And so oftentimes we will take the approach of, can we validate that, right? Let us bring in intent data. So, that's a little bit of a political approach there.
Yes,
We're not going to tell you that it's the wrong list, but let us validate it. And also let's prioritize it, right? When we think about launching campaigns, if you have a target account list of 300 or 500, we still need to prioritize that to get it down into clusters, right? So that we can put more thoughtful programs in market. And so I think that's really where we start to see intent play a really large role.
But yeah, to be able to take the intent and make some predictions.
Yeah, and I think the other piece that we're starting to see too is putting an intent layer before you even think about content syndication as well. Kind of what are so thinking
or
about
ads.
Yep, exactly.
It's interesting. I was with a client recently, and a lot of times we think up the ads, and we like doing that stuff, right? And she said, "No, I don't do that at all. I only look at the keywords, and then based on the keywords, I design my creative." Which I thought was like,
so that's going into the messaging, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where there's this like bifurcated approach where you can sit there and leverage the intent to understand who we want to target, but then listen, right, in terms of the keywords to then go, okay, how does that play into messaging, and how does that attach to a theme, right, that we want to potentially build a campaign around for that cluster or that group of accounts.
So what do you think minimum viable product is from a tech perspective?
I believe that the data and insights piece is priority number one, because why should we think about orchestrating and automating before we have figured out who?
Because you could just be automating bad stuff.
Can we not repeat the mistakes of the past?
Yeah.
Right?
Let's keep slinging terrible things.
We also have an approach where we think too many people are piloting without understanding or thinking through how they want to scale. And so it's almost this like, I'm going to pilot, but then I don't know what to do after the pilot. So.
Guilty. I did that before.
Right.
Well, what happened was all the things you talked about I did wrong. So I got the list from sales, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, we tried to have our own list, but every region needed to have a couple accounts.
Yeah.
Every solution needed to have a couple accounts in the mix. So it was this super hodgepodge. So that's that. So that set us up for failure. Then we didn't have we didn't have great technology, and so it just sort of died under its own weight.
Yeah.
It was so darn hard.
Yep.
That people were just like, I'm exhausted. We can't do anything else. This is exhausting.
It's exhausting. So we always say, we're like, can we go into the pilot with some hypotheses? Let's create some hypotheses on how we think we're going to scale ABM, right? Because if it's just a bunch of it's just one-off campaigns, right? If we don't start thinking about this.
A lot of content.
And so if we can hypothesize, it doesn't mean that we're going to hit it out, that we're going to be 100% right. But if we can hypothesize how we're going to do this, what technology, the role of technology, the role of data, how messaging is going to be developed, resources that are going to participate. If we can do that and then use the pilot to disprove or prove, right, some of those hypotheses, then at least we can come out of it with a scale plan, right?
So I love this. So you're out there working with all these clients, hypothesis, pilot, ramp. You see patterns, and I think we all want to learn from the patterns.
The number one pattern
is
everybody thinks they can do it faster than they can.
Okay.
That's the number one trend, is everybody thinks like, no, we have to get a market, like we have to get it done, we have to get it in market in 8 weeks. Can you do it faster than 8 weeks? And we say, newsflash industry, right? The agency partners out there are not the limiting factor, right, to getting things in market. It's typically the client moving fast enough.
Oh, totally.
Agreeing on target account list, I mean, everybody underestimates how long that's actually going to take. Agreeing on the messaging, right? I think once you can get past there, then it's, putting together what the marketing mix strategy is going to be, right? What the touches are going to be, who's doing what, and I think at that point it starts to move a lot more smoothly. But yeah, that's the biggest one that we see.
Well, I was at Amanda, our founder, started a empowerment network for CMOs, women, kind of elevating women. And I have been going through messaging with Sixth Sense, and it's hard. Even in a small organization, everyone's got opinions about it. And so I was talking to Wendy Yale, and I was like, I feel like I'm in the locker room. We can't get going. I just want to go play the ball.
Yeah.
And she goes, oh, just tell them you're testing a campaign on social. So that's my tip to everyone.
We're testing, right? We're just testing.
Yes. You don't get it approved.
Well,
just test it.
I also think you're touching on something, which is there is a little bit of anxiety when you talk about needing to develop messaging, because it's like meeting buyer personas. How many organizations are like, oh God, not again. We've already been through this.
Yes.
And so
it changes.
And so we'll get this often. We just went through a messaging process, or product marketing has already done this. And so what we try to stress is that we're not reinventing the wheel when it comes to messaging. What we're doing is taking your product messaging, your brand messaging, and we're bringing it down to a relevant message that's going to resonate in the cluster of accounts that we've chosen, right? We have to find a business imperative or an initiative, right, that is common across those accounts, and then we can translate that sort of higher level message into, right, what's going to resonate with that particular audience. But it takes a while for people to understand that.
But I think the cluster, and then being able to look, we talk about MicroSegmenting. Cluster.
Potato.
Audience. Yeah, whatever. And looking at the microsegment and then taking your stand, you don't have to reinvent, just have kind of your template, but then based on what you're seeing in the segment, let it roll.
Exactly. And I think you said template. I think that's a really good, everybody hates the word framework, but as long as there is a template that's being leveraged to develop that messaging, I think
it's somewhat thoughtful.
The first one is the hardest one, and after you get through the first one, and this is where, thinking through the process of how we bring ABM campaigns to life is important to do up front, because once everybody kind of knows their marching order, think of it like the RACI for ABM, right? Who's responsible for what, who's doing what. Then I think once there's a template, it becomes much more scalable, right, to execute additional campaigns after that pilot.
So how do we measure success? Because it's conference season, I've been to all these conferences, and every single track, the hottest, most urgent topic is, I had all my dashboards set up for lead-based.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm working on account-based.
Mm-hmm.
I'm somewhere in this transition.
Mm-hmm.
am I red, yellow, green? How do I know I'm up or down?
Yeah.
What do you recommend?
So we do a process where we need to define short, mid, and long-term metrics. Now, I'm making a giant assumption here that anybody who's doing account-based has a longer sales cycle, not a 2-month sales cycle, right? That has a little bit longer of a sales cycle, so they don't have immediate pipeline
Sure.
to show.
Yeah, you
right?
have to look for like glimmers to know that you're on the right track.
So we do, here's like short-term, right, metrics that we can look at. Here's midterm metrics that we can look at. And here's long-term where we're headed, but especially if you're an organization that has an 18-month sales cycle, we're not going to get there.
So those are easy.
Right.
I mean, it's pipeline, it's deal sizes, but yeah, if it's going to take 18 months.
It's also quantitative and qualitative, right? And so getting the business to sort of think about the fact that it's not just all quantitative in an account-based, right, world, that we are trying to get to, the qualitative metrics, is it a referenceable client? What's the strength of the relationship within our account team and things like that that maybe they haven't thought about measuring. Everybody wants to go right to their pretty dashboard as opposed to, can we think about the KPIs and do we have the right KPIs for account-based? Once we're there, then we can map in what tools some of those metrics, right, are sitting within, or there's gaps, right, in developing these metrics, then get to the development, then get to the dashboard. But I'm seeing everybody go right to the dashboard as opposed to maybe rethinking.
So give me a few for short term and a few for midterm, because I think those are the hardest areas.
Top of my head. I mean, short term is going to be the ones you think of, number of sales calls, number of meetings set, things like that,
New personas engaged.
Some sort of engagement metric, right? But again, it might be an engagement metric that we're looking for, it could be a much smaller threshold, right, for a short term. Midterm is going to be like, is it in pipe? It might not be closed, right? But is it in pipe? Is it more meetings set? So there could be more that we're kind of looking at there. Coverage, right? Have we expanded? Have we expanded our relationships across the buying team? Because sometimes in the short term, I mean, we have clients who are running plays that are simply just changing the perception of their brand within that account. I mean, think if you're an old, if you have an on-prem solution and you're trying to switch, 20,000 customers to your cloud solution, you've got to change the perception of your brand before you can even, to be a more modern organization, before you can even think about trying to get a meeting set and try to sell them something.
You haven't earned the right.
Right? So that company's short-term metrics are going to look vastly different, right, than somebody whose ABM program is totally focused on net new. Right? And so that's where sometimes it's not everybody has the same short-term and everybody has the same midterm.
So, switching gears, founding Inverta, I have been really impressed with the team that you've created. And so much, one of the things we talk about on Talking Sense is culture and entrepreneurship and a culture of growth. So maybe how have you been thoughtful about?
So it's interesting because I always, we've spent just as much time thinking about, you think about prospects, well, we think about candidates, right? And who's going to potentially come join us. And when we started the firm, we sort of stole the Netflix mantra of fully formed adults, right? Everybody that comes here has to be a fully formed adult. And then you think about it, the nature of what we're doing, you have to be pretty experienced. You likely have had to sit on the client side. You've also had to consult for some time so you understand how to manage clients because,
run the workshop.
Can be difficult. Yeah, exactly. Run the workshop, when the eccentric CEO walks in and tries to derail everything, get it back on track. And so fully formed adults, autonomous. We also knew that there was a lot of independent consultants out there that, are so talented, and that's why they went out on their own. And you hit a certain point as an independent consultant where you kind of miss having a team to collaborate with, and you want to become innovative, and so you want to get around other smart people. And so that was really when we developed the culture. It was fully formed adults, autonomous. We want to be a home, right, for independent consultants that maybe want to come back and join a team. We do these, it's hard because we're 100% virtual, right?
I love that though.
So, and again, think about
it. You've got to be more thoughtful about your culture though.
And think about it, we're going after fully formed adults. They want to work in a virtual environment, right? They have now gotten to a point in their lives where nobody has to micromanage them, right? They know what they're doing. So they want the autonomy of working from home and being able to control their schedules. But then you have to go, how do you build culture so that everybody feels like they're a part of a team? So we've just done little things. If we do a Friday call, It's Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern time, every week. We use video like at the wazoo.
Yes, I know.
Yeah,
Huge
we're
fan.
big video. You and I
Yeah.
Even if our hair's in a bun,
Yeah.
it's okay. That was the other thing.
Right.
You know, it's okay if you haven't washed your hair and you just got it done in the gym. It's okay. And we have no agenda. And so I know it's funny. I've been in environments where people are like, you know, as a CEO, you have to plan everything and you have to be really organized. But I have found there's a certain water cooler aspect that you miss in a virtual environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to find a way to create the water cooler, right, in a virtual environment. So we did the no agenda Friday calls. I mean, last Friday, I don't think we talked about one. I went to Hamilton, so we talked about Hamilton. We talked about people's weekend plans. Somebody's kid had a birthday. Somebody's kid showed up on the call.
Oh yeah, my son Watson debuts on our calls all the time.
And we have plenty of very work-focused calls, but this is a way for us to really kind of just sort of build that family atmosphere. And so we're really, because we have that, we work hard, play hard. We're not curing cancer. You know, we're all smart people, but let's be real about the work that we're doing. So if anybody's having a bad week because, you know, maybe it was just tense calls with a client, it's like, let's bring it down a level.
Right.
Let's relax.
Right.
But yeah, so so far it's been working.
Awesome. So you guys are on fire. Hot market,
Mm-hmm.
great team,
Yep.
product market fit, 3 years.
Okay, so I have a goal. We have a goal of really sort of expanding the firm to service the marketer more broadly. So think about the technology space and think about sort of that, you know, whatever Scott Brinker's, how many there are now, 67, whatever it is. When
Stresses me out every time that
right,
comes
it's,
out.
I know, and everybody like rolls their eyes at it. But just at the sheer volume. But I think, you know, we're starting to see consolidations, right? We're starting, and I think that that's just naturally going to happen. And so when I think about that, and I just constantly think about the marketer, and I'm like, man, imagine having to have so many partners to support all of this. And how unruly that is to manage that many partners. Like, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so our
We
goal...
call it the stack show.
And so our goal is to service the marketer more broadly. So we will look at areas where we can organically expand our service offerings to allow our marketer to come to us, and we can help them with more than what we do today. And then we will look for inorganic growth as well. So talk about, you know, the fit in terms of high-level consulting. We also think if you look at the consulting and agency space in B2B, there's a lot of guys down here, and then there's a few big guys up here. So that leaves room right in the middle, right, in terms of size of organization, size of consulting firm / agency. We're kind of a hybrid between the two that we want to go out and seize. So we don't have plans of stopping.
Awesome. Well, we have loved partnering with you so far.
That's been great.
I feel like together we've got a very, very compelling solutions to help people. I know you said it takes longer than they expect, but I think together we can help them fast track some of that.
Yes, very true.
And just appreciate you coming on Talking Sense.
Thank you so much for having us. And yes, I'm looking forward to a continued relationship and lots of client success stories.
Exactly. All right. Thanks,
Thank
Patrice.
you.